Welcome to this explainer. You know, what started out as just a simple, fun backyard pastime has completely exploded into a billion-dollar professional sport. And well, with that massive growth has come a super high-stakes technological arms race for 2026. It is literally squeezing manufacturers and players alike. There is this quiet tension settling over professional courts right now, and it actually has nothing to do with scorelines or player rivalries. It's entirely about the paddle in your hand and whether the equipment you just bought in good faith is, actually still legal to use.
There is one phrase that perfectly captures the unprecedented chaos happening at tournament gates right now, and it's this: passed yesterday, banned tomorrow. I mean, just imagine showing up to a competitive match with a paddle that sailed through certification just a few months ago, only to have it pulled from your hands before you even step onto the court. That is the very real reality in 2026. Paddles that pros have built their entire playing styles around are suddenly being retroactively removed from approved lists. It's a massive wave of decertification. So, to understand how we got to this boiling point, we really need to look back at how the equipment evolved.
Let's trace the sport's rapid evolution, going all the way from simple wooden paddles to these crazy space-age instruments that just completely outpace the rulebooks. Back in 1965, you played with wood. Simple enough, right? There were no exotic materials to regulate. Then the 2000s brought us the composite era. We're talking fiberglass and early carbon fiber, where we saw the first meaningful variations in performance. But the real shift, the spark that ignited this whole crisis, happened around 2021 with thermoformed tech. Manufacturers started adapting processes from tennis rackets, creating hollow polymer cores bonded under heat and pressure to carbon fiber faces. Suddenly, you had paddles generating dramatically more power and spin than anything anyone had ever seen. The technology had sprinted way ahead, but as we are about to see, the regulatory testing was completely stuck in the past. Part 1, the tech gap and the science of the strike. To understand why perfectly legal paddles are suddenly illegal, we have to dig into the actual science behind what happens when the paddle strikes the ball. For most of pickleball's regulated history, the testing methods were, frankly, totally failing the modern game. Power used to be measured using a static deflection test. Basically, they literally just dropped a ball onto a mounted paddle and measured the rebound, which, worked fine for solid wood or basic composite cores, but it completely failed to measure the dynamic power of modern hollow core paddles under real high-velocity match conditions. So manufacturers were innocently optimizing their designs around a test that had become entirely obsolete. They were passing with flying colors in the lab, but the paddles were behaving completely differently out on the court.
The secret behind this dynamic behavior is what's known as the trampoline effect. When you strike a ball at high velocity with a thermoformed paddle, the surface actually deforms momentarily. It's exactly like jumping on a trampoline. It then snaps back, imparting massive additional energy to the ball. And we're talking energy way above and beyond your physical swing. This gives players explosive power with far less physical effort, which effectively starts rewarding your equipment choice over your actual athletic skill. And for regulators, that was a huge red flag. To combat this trampoline effect, regulators finally updated their methods in late 2024 by introducing the PBCOR test. That stands for the paddle/ball coefficient of restitution. They basically brought baseball bat level precision testing into the pickleball world. Instead of just dropping a ball, they now fire a pickleball at a mounted paddle using a high-powered machine launcher. High-speed cameras and sensors capture the inbound and outbound speeds, giving regulators an exact ratio. For the very first time, they had a definitive number that precisely quantified exactly how much punch a paddle truly delivers. And the result of all that testing comes down to this one absolutely crucial number, 0.43. This is the newly tightened PPCOR maximum limit taking effect in November 2025. Now, you might be wondering, why are regulators pushing this number downward? Well, it's because exceeding this even slightly generates serious injury risk ball speeds, especially for players who are standing just a few feet away at the non-volley zone. So it's really a matter of basic safety and preserving the true character of the game. Part 2, 2 rulebooks, total chaos, because having a highly accurate new test is really only half the battle, when the sport itself is split right down the middle.
Right now, the sport has fractured into a completely divided ecosystem. On one side, you have USA Pickleball, or USP. They are the original governing body handling amateur and recreational standards. But on the other side, you have the United Pickleball Association of America, or UPAA. They're a newer body specifically overseeing professional play. like the PPA Tour and Major League Pickleball. Because they operate totally independently, a paddle can be completely USAP certified for your local Tuesday morning club game, but absolutely banned by the UPAA for professional play. It leaves players constantly having to navigate two different rule books every single time they step on a court. And this dual system creates a massive regulatory nightmare that we call the break-in problem. You see, even if a paddle passes the PB Core test straight out of the factory, the internal structure, specifically the bond between the core and the face, actually changes under repeated impact. After about 50 hours of normal use, many of these thermoformed paddles actually increase in power. Their trampoline effect gets hotter. So think about this. A player could be using a completely legal, newly minted paddle on Monday, and by Friday, through no fault or deception of their own, that exact same paddle has turned into an illegal weapon right in the middle of a tournament. To solve this crazy break-in problem, the UPAA introduced what they call the Accelerated Break-in Standard. And let me tell you, it is intense. Manufacturers have to submit their paddles to independent labs where machines just relentlessly fire thousands of balls at them, simulating months of real-world wear in a super compressed time frame. Regulators chart the performance curve from the very first impact all the way to heavy use to ensure the paddle's power never crosses the legal threshold. It is literally a destructive testing process. The paddles they submit absolutely do not survive the lab. Part 3, the nuclear option: fines, bans, and break-ins. Destructive testing is just the carrot to get products on the approved list. Now we have to talk about the UPSA's very large stick. And that stick? It comes in the form of a massive $50,000 fine. Under the new protocol, the UPAA selects brands totally at random every single quarter. They literally buy their paddles straight from retail shelves to test them. If a manufacturer fails this randomized compliance testing multiple times, triggering a third violation, they face a full investigation, complete decertification from professional play, and a devastating $50,000 penalty. These new rules are putting an immense financial squeeze on the industry. Out of the roughly 2,000 paddle brands out there in the market, anyone wanting to play at the pro level faces some incredibly steep UPPA requirements. We're talking an annual brand fee of $20,000, plus $5,000 per paddle model and another $1,000 per model variation. For a brand with a broad lineup, that is easily a six-figure overhead. It is completely changing the economics of the entire business, and it's forcing a lot of smaller companies to just abandon pro-level certification entirely because they simply cannot afford to play in this regulatory sandbox. Part 4, surviving the chaos. So, with previously approved paddles getting sunsetted left and right, testing limits tightening, and dual rulebooks causing constant confusion, how do you actually navigate this landscape as a player in 2026? To make sure you don't get disqualified at the gate, let's run through a quick survival checklist. First, verify the current status before you buy. Seriously, do not assume past approval equals present approval. Check the live lists. Second, buy from established brands, because they're the ones with dedicated compliance teams to handle these changing standards. Third, register for equipment updates directly from USAP and UWAPA, so you aren't caught off guard by a sudden decertification. Fourth, if you're competing, always carry a backup certified paddle, just in case yours fails an on-site test due to that break-in effect we talked about. And finally, know your league. If you're an amateur, look for USAP approval. If you are going pro, you absolutely need UWAPA certification. So the future of the sport is incredibly unsettled right now. As pickleball continues to grapple with the trampoline effect, tightening PBCR limits, and impending spin testing standards, it leaves us all with a critical question. Will the sport of pickleball eventually reunite under one unified, safe standard, or will this wild technological arms race permanently fracture the game? It's a fascinating balancing act between embracing material science and preserving the integrity of fair play. So what do you think is the right path forward? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Definitely keep a close eye on those approval lists, and I will see you next time.